Hi, Andrew from SACS, and welcome to video number 4 in our 11 video series on how to create a corporate culture. This one is particularly about workplace drivers of corporate culture, addressing the question of what is it really that causes corporate culture? Well, research indicates that there are 4 key drivers of corporate culture: job, team, leader, and organisation. In a previous video, I explained that job, team, and leader have way more impact on the well-being and productivity of employees than the organisation does. Sure, the organisation can sort of sponsor an atmosphere and sponsor a set of rules that create high-quality local cultures, but it's the culture at the local level that matters most. So let's talk about what some of the components of that might be. Now, this is the results of a very significant research program that we undertook with Deakin University, where we measured characteristics of job, team, leader, and organisation. And the job characteristics were things like optimism about the future of the job. Is this job going to improve? Variety of work, self-confidence, learning at work, knowledge of processes and policies. So what that suggests is that the job that causes people to have high levels of well-being is in fact a job that's kind of varied, interesting, has the right amount of challenge, and where you're optimistic that things will continue to improve in that job. Then there's the question of team. And components of the team are things like the freedom to make decisions, optimism about the future of the team, customer commitment, that is, that we care about our customers, performance feedback, clarity of goals, encouragement and support. And so if you work for a cohesive team which supports each other and which is really clear about what it's trying to achieve, then that also creates a positive corporate culture. Then there's your immediate leader. We're going to go into leadership in more detail in subsequent videos, but basically the type of leader that creates a positive corporate culture is a leader who is supportive and kind and helpful, who causes people to learn, but also is really good at creating accountability about performance and accountability about behaviours. In other words, a good leader is kind and helpful and friendly, but also sets the tone of how the organisation or this team should behave and how the team should relate to each other, so that when people come to work, they're clear about what the organisation and the team stands for in terms of behaviours, performance, those kinds of things. And finally, an organisation that drives corporate culture is an organisation where people are optimistic about the future of the organisation. They perceive that the organisation sponsors a willingness to change. They feel that it encourages freedom to make decisions. Recognition of performance is strong. Clarity of goals for the organisation is strong, and customer commitment and performance feedback are strong. So that's a positive organisation. And as I said in previous videos, the organisation accounts for about 20% of people's well-being and productivity. The local team, job, team, and leader, accounts for about 80% of people's productivity and well-being. The important thing to understand, though, is that it's the leader that really sets the tone for that local environment. If I'm in a team, and I'm a team of 5 positive people, but I have a negative boss, well, we all know the effect that that will have. On the other hand, if I'm in a negative team and I have a positive boss, that gives a sense of optimism that things are going to improve. So which are the most important drivers of all of this? You'll see that on the right-hand side here of this diagram, a couple of things to note. One is the adjusted R-squared. That meant that we were able to predict about 65% of people's engagement at work from the characteristics of job, team, leader, and organisation. Now, 65% is pretty much in practical terms about as much as you could hope for to define engagement and well-being of employees from measuring these kinds of things. So it's a very important causative relationship. And which ones are the most important? You'll see that the most important characteristics of engagement for employees, the things like learning at work, optimism about the job, self-confidence, and variety of work. And so those, you'll see, J is for job, they're job characteristics. Creates a learning environment is a leadership characteristic. So leaders who create a learning environment tend to sponsor an environment where you have better corporate culture. And finally, T is for team, and that's optimism about the team is heading the right direction, clarity of goals for the team, recognition of performance within the team. And that just backs up my statistic about 80% of what matters to the team comes from within the team rather than from the organisation. Because you'll see that there's J's, you'll see that there's L's, and you'll see that there's T's, but there is no O for organisation. So the organisational bit matters, but nowhere near as much as the local environment. So if you want to have a good corporate culture, you've got to skill up local leaders to be able to drive that kind of corporate culture. But you're also going to have to recruit right. In the next video in this sequence, we're going to talk about common misconceptions about corporate culture. So this is the question of what myths exist about corporate culture. So if this content is of use to you, don't hesitate to like and subscribe.